Welcome to Otakus Geeks.com. Justin here, and today I want to introduce to you something I'm going to do monthly called Otakus Geeks.com versus, where I'm going to be taking a look at two versions of the same game and which version was better. Today, to kick it off for episode 1, we're going to take a look at Jurassic Park for the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. And let's start off with the graphics for the Super Nintendo. Now, for the graphics here, I thought the graphics here for the Super Nintendo looks gorgeous. It's beautiful, and just the way they decided to design the game, which I'll get deeper into with the gameplay, is that they went with a more open map, free roam type of feel here. And I'm going to tell you in gameplay a little pros and cons, but from the graphics standpoint, it's way brighter. It's much brighter. The dinosaurs are huge, but I'm not a fan of Dr. Grant's bulky figure. If you remember the game True Lies, he looks just like the same design Arnold had, but graphically it looks much more powerful and it has a more open map feel with real locations from the game. Now, for the Sega Genesis, they went with a more darker feel, but at the same time, that darker feel gave more of a realistic aesthetic to the actual game. It seems that the Sega Genesis went out of their way to more capture the beautiful look of the designs of the actual film. As you can see from here, they even included Grant's attack on the car. And one just a little Easter egg thing. Things in this game that were included in here were from, some of the elements were from the deleted scenes from the actual original script. And so here, as you can see from the graphics, you can see what I'm talking about, with a more darker, gritty feel, less bright than the Super Nintendo version. But heck, you can see that Dr. Grant looks way better with his more slim, slender size instead of that bulky, aesthetic feel. And I thought it worked very, very, very well. So for graphically, I'm going to give it to the Sega Genesis for the graphics there. Even though the Super Nintendo hardware was a little bit more powerful and more crisp, more designed from a graphic standpoint, but I'm going for accuracy when it comes to the graphics. Now, let's talk about gameplay here, which is the most important thing of any game. Now, the gameplay here for the Super Nintendo, you have a variety of things you can do here with the Super Nintendo, which I thought was pretty clever here. You have this open map type of feel, which means you can go anywhere, but in certain locations you need a key, similar to Jurassic Park. So here you have actual real locations from the movies, such as the Visitor Center, which is the epic conclusion of the Jurassic Park game. So you get to explore here. One thing I did like is that they introduced various elements. As you can see, before we got into it, we went into a third-person perspective, but in here we have kind of like the first-person Doom type of feel to it, which I thought worked very, very well, and actually kind of adds a little bit of intensity here for a little horror elements there, because you don't know what is around the corner. I thought that worked very well. My problem here with this is not the fact that the gameplay mechanics, but it's the actual, well, not the gameplay concept, but it's the actual mechanics. It is a chore to control this in first person. As you can see me just struggling trying to angle this right so I can get into the door and just attack the enemies. It's not very easy or fun to control here, and you have things like this with this raptor walking back and forth. Just a little bit of nitpicking here when it comes to weapons as well. You have this grenade launcher that I'm using, and it usually will kill the enemies, but once you leave the room, the enemies will respawn. And I know this is the 90s, so obviously they ain't had the technology to keep, mostly they didn't really have enemies to just stay down, but it's a little frustrating because you're wasting your ammo, you're wasting your bullets, and then you just come back in the room and then the same Velociraptor is still there, so you didn't do nothing. One thing I do like is that you do have to find keys to open up doors, and you need various items to go through certain sections of the game, which I thought was pretty good. Gameplay for the most part is solid, but the first person aspect here kind of weighs it down with its clunky controls, and it's not something that I really have much fun playing. But the concept is there. It still gives you more of a Jurassic Park feel, and this is what exactly I was talking about. It's the same one I killed, and here's the raptors again that I just killed with the same weapon. So I will definitely say the gameplay is pretty good. I will say my biggest complaint is that there's no real much instructions of what you're supposed to do. So you could be walking, if you don't like check around, you could be walking aimlessly of what you're going to be doing. You could just be walking around and getting attacked and just constantly walking around the island, not until you figure out and you come across some items, and then you progress that way. But it would have been nice to have a little bit more of a cutthroat instructions or a map of where we're going to go, since this is more of an open map feel compared to the Sega Genesis, which is level based, which we are about to get into right now. For the Sega Genesis, I love the way they approach this. Not only, like I said, it's a more darker, gritty take on Jurassic Park compared to the Super Nintendo, but its level designs. The Sega Genesis game makes you feel tense because it's non-stop, constant dinos coming at you, whether it's the Dilophosaurus, the Compies, or the Velociraptors. And heck, even if you hit the herbivores by accident, the Triceratops, they will come after you. So it's constant elements of danger. Not to mention the environment also plays a huge role in this. As you can see me getting electrocuted constantly because I mistimed my jump. I'm sorry about that. And because so you have not only the dinosaurs, you have the environment that's constantly coming at you. And I thought that the level design aspect was working for the favor compared to the Super Nintendo. While the Super Nintendo, I was walking around aimlessly trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do or where I'm supposed to be, and just losing my mind. The Sega Genesis level base works very well, and it even has some clever puzzles that you have to solve in order to progress and do and get to the next segment of the game, which I thought was very well. When it comes to weapons, they also have a smart tendency of just giving you tranquilizer darts, which gives you reasons of why, if you do a little bit of backtracking, why the dinosaurs will respawn, because you haven't shot them down with a rocket launcher or a gun or anything like that. You shot them with a tranquilizer. The tranquilizer is going to wear off eventually, so it actually works into the game's favor of what they're going for, and I thought it worked very, very well. I would definitely say from a gameplay perspective, while the Super Nintendo does have open map elements, the clunky controls of the first person doesn't really gel for me, but the intensity of the Sega Genesis and strict to the base, level base, and solving puzzles, giving you a mission and just constantly get throwing dinos at you in environments, I'm going to give it to the Sega Genesis on this one. So for the final thoughts, we're going to talk a little bit about the overall experience and of course the music. I'm definitely going to give it to the Super Nintendo. I thought sound quality wise, it had much better sound quality when it comes to the music from the music perspective. Sound effects, I'm going to give it to the Sega Genesis. The Sega Genesis had a more accurate roar of the T-Rex, the accurate screech of the Velociraptors, and the Dilophosaurus. So I'm definitely going to give the sound effect quality to the Sega Genesis. This doesn't mean that the Super Nintendo game is bad. I actually had fun playing it back in the days when I was at my friend's house and just reliving it again, just the concept of the open world and open map. And here's a funny tip for you. The Sega Genesis version of The Lost World followed this type of gameplay elements. So Super Nintendo did something right. So if you never checked out The Lost World, you'll check it out. Google it, you'll see what I mean from the Super Nintendo. But I would just say overall the Super Nintendo's fun while it has the open map feel and everything else, but it just kind of didn't work for me compared to the Sega Genesis. More intense, more in your face with the dinosaurs, and just more straight to the point and more difficulty level as well. It's a very challenging game and you really have to think on your toes. And as you can see, look at the design of the T-Rex. Look how accurate it looks with the movie. It's basically kind of a copy and paste. They really nailed the feel of the T-Rex and I really enjoyed that. And I forgot I gotta solve the puzzle there. I haven't played this game in years, you guys, so forgive me. What am I doing? Go back up before he wakes up and eats me. This is one problem I will have with the Sega Genesis is this, that when you're trying to jump down, Grant will automatically latch onto things, and he's up. All right, let me get the ball in there. Did that work? Yep. Oh, whoa, barely. Come on. Anyway, so Overall, you guys, definitely I will say the Sega Genesis of Jurassic Park is the more superior version of this. I think they nailed it more. I think they captured the movie more. I think the design of Grant works better. And just the designs, because the dinosaurs are larger than life, and it seems on the Super Nintendo that him and Grant, the dinosaurs and Grant was kind of like on the same playing field, while here, Grant is literally running for his life. Like, the dinosaurs are not letting up on this one. And for those who wanted to know what deleted scene was scrapped from the original script, it's Grant going through Jurassic Park in this raft here. You can look it up and you can see what I'm talking about. So this is Justin from OtakusGeeks.com. For my 80s and 90s babies who played Jurassic Park, both versions, which version did you like more? I obviously like the Sega Genesis version better. I had more fun with it. Leave a comment below and let me know. Later days, you guys. I'll catch you next month for another episode.